Hello and welcome to month 3 of our $5 quilt club. This month we're going to be doing foundation paper piecing. So I do want you have to print out our templates from our website. And the most important thing you're going to do is you're going to measure the longest length on here and make sure that this is 7.5 inches. It has to measure 7.5 inches to guarantee that your printer was at the right settings so that your block will come out the right size. So I'm just going to stick it just on the mat here, and you can see that it is 7.5 inches on the longest side. So my printer worked correctly, and I was able to get that to be 7.5. So if it's not 7.5, you're going to have to probably take off scale to fit when it's printing so that you can make sure that that is the right size. So the first thing you're going to do when you get your templates is you're going to cut them out. So you don't have to be exact when you cut these out. I always leave a little bit when I'm cutting out my paper templates for foundation paper piecing. So I'm just going to cut those out, toss that, and then cut these out here. So again, it doesn't need to be exact, but you certainly do not want to be cutting into the seam allowance. So from this bold line here to the very edge here, that is your seam allowance. And you want to make sure that you're going to have, the standard 1/4 inch when you cut it. So you can get close to it. So those are kind of close, but that's okay because we're gonna trim it when we're done anyway. So just as long as you don't make it smaller and you don't cut into that area there. So there we go. Okay, so I have all of my pieces cut, and it's going to be these four pieces. So that is what you are going to use to cut your fabric. So you're going to have to lay your fabric over the top of it and make sure that it is large enough to cover. It's bigger than the paper on all sides. So if you flip it to the back, sometimes you can see a little bit better through the paper, and you can see that that is definitely larger. So that's about approximately a 4.5 inch square. So you're going to want to cut that for your centerpiece, and then you're going to want to do that for each one of your triangles here. You're going to have 8 of your green triangles. So if you have to hold that up to a light, hold it up to a window so that you can see that this green piece I cut is definitely large enough to cover that triangle right here. So I'm trying to cover spot A2, and I want to cut a strip from, so this will be a 2.5 inch strip in your kit. And you're going to want to make sure that that will cover this whole area here. So I've cut a whole bunch of these, and 8 of them. So, and they measure approximately 2.5 by 3. So you'll have plenty of fabric in your kit left over. I just want to make sure that you definitely have to be cutting them large enough so that you don't want this to be exactly the same size as that triangle, because it will be very difficult to piece this foundation paper piecing way if it's exact. So you want to make sure that your pieces are very generous. So that's how big I cut those. For the corner pieces, my square here, you can see the white fabric extends nicely beyond all of the seam allowance sides to especially this side, because the seam allowance isn't marked. You have to make sure that you're always making sure that your pieces that you cut, 2-piece, the block, are going to be sufficiently large to cover that whole area. So these ones that I've cut for the white are approximately 3 inches square, and you'll need 4 of those. And then also for the background of your flying geese here, those ones I've cut to definitely be large enough on all sides. And you don't have to be exact, which is fantastic with paper piecing, because it will turn out perfect, but you don't have to cut perfect. So that is how big I cut those, and they are approximately, let's see, about 4.5 by 3. So you're going to need 4 of those for the middle of your flying geese block. So if we lay this out the way that it will look, it's going to look like this. So when we sew this, we're going to start with A, then we're going to go to B, then we're going to go to C, and then we're going to go to D. So you can see that each one of these paper pieces has numbers and letters. And so the letters correspond to which piece you sew first, and the numbers correspond to which piece of fabric you place on that piece in order. So first you start with A1, then you go to 2, 3, and 4. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but that is cutting for block 3 of our $5 quilt club. And the next video will show you how to stitch.